The art of leaving, the art of departure, I find is equally as important because it's a good send-off. You always want a good leaver. You want to have a good departure for each person who leaves their organization. First of all, they're tied to the brand of your organization. You want them to be successful as they launch. Imagine if someone who had been in your company started the next unicorn company. You want them to speak really highly of the company that you've just left. So let them leave with their head high and celebrate their departure. Also, for the people that are still there, they need to see that they are going to still be honored as they depart.
What does a diplomat, a TEDx speaker, an improv comedian, and a healthcare exec have in common? In Jennifer Cain Birkmose's case, they're all the same person. In this episode, we unpack how reinvention, reverence, and the yes and thinking are shaping the future of aging and business. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Oh, Mark, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I'm so excited to be on Peak Performance.
And my first question to you is, what does peak performance mean to you?
That's the money shot right there, right? The money shot of what is peak performance. I hope I'm concise enough for you and for your listeners to dive right into this. But peak performance, I think, is the result of everyone firing in the same direction with the maximal amount of focus, flow, being in the right space to just go for it, to co-create, and having all of the right physiological, emotional, intellectual, and physical criteria to make it go. Whatever that thing. Peak performance athletically, peak performance in business, peak performance in how you're performing, I guess, even in your relationships. You could say, are you aligned with what you bring to the table emotionally, physically, intellectually, spiritually, one could even say, are you actually tuning into all those things? And if you are, and you've got yourself in flow, then you're going to have the opportunity to be in peak performance.
You said three things and it sounded really nice. You talked about bringing everybody together, having the focus, and having the flow. It takes 60 seconds to say that, but to achieve that is so difficult. So in your life, let's go one by one. How do you achieve that focus when there are so many distractions?
Oh, there are so many distractions. And I would say that digital dementia, Mark, is a real thing on a daily basis for me and everyone. We know that. For me, to get to that place of peak performance, it comes from, let me tell you, a rather unusual route. And I think you already hinted to it in the introduction of Jen, might have done some interesting things professionally in her life. And the thing that's always surprised me is that by becoming an improv comedian, everything else got better. And so how do I get to my own peak performance and all these things like optimal performance intellectually, spiritually, physically, emotionally? I think it's by the practices of tapping into the tools of improv comedy to have heightened focus, heightened awareness. Because if you think about what people who are improvisers do, they don't just go out and open water swim with an idea without any type of training or without any type of warm up. So in order to warm up, you're basically finding ways to turn off your amygdala, your lizard brain, and you're trying to find new connections in your own thinking brain and that with the others who you're improvising with. So finding ways to connect, to be hyper present with yourself so that you're listening, you're observing, you're absorbing everything, and then you are working with others to create something. That's what we have to do before we go on stage and we create a show for an audience, that we get a couple of words of suggestions from them and then we have an hour show. It's the same type of idea when you're trying to create a business or to create a new concept or a new business model or a new product. You're creating something from nothing. So you got to get your mind, you got to get your body, you got to get even your emotions aligned to be able to do something like this, to be totally focused on yourself and the other, whomever the other is that you're going to co-create with.
If somebody's listening to this and they're like, I don't have a chance to go and do improv comedy, but I like this idea of being in a moment and just giving it all. Is there an exercise that they could do at home before work that could potentially put them in a similar state of mind?
100%. So what I love about improv is it's not such a fancy thing, right? Like it's not giving a TED talk, right? It's coming up with little micro bets and little micro opportunities to initiate an idea, collaborate, and to fail. And what I often tell myself or even executives who are trying to use these tools, this is a safe space to fail, because very often in an environment where if you're trying to create something that's high stakes and you fail, then you have a high stakes failure, a high publicly visible failure. When you're doing these things in your practice room, which could just be a room like this, right? Just your home, you can actually find ways to fail in a box, like your own sandbox of failure. Not that you're seeking it, but you're gonna fail and you're gonna find the beauty of how do you pull yourself up again. So what are things that you can do alone? I would say difficult to do alone. However, you can do it with someone else. So one of the things when I'm walking down the street, really no joke, I will prepare for musical improv, which is when we're on stage, we'll be playing a scene and we will have someone say something very funny and our director will say, that sounds like a song, and then we'll create a song in that particular moment. And so to prepare for that, we could just play rhyming games. So literally I'll just pick a word and I'll say pot, top, stop, crop, bop. As I'm walking down the street, I'll just rhyme words. And so that's a way to keep your mind focused and just preparing for this as well, because it gets your mind ready to listen to what's coming in terms of your own inspiration. I think with yourself, like you and I, you want to play a game? I'll show you a game.
Okay.
I love it. Thanks, Mark. So one of my favorite things is to tell a story with each other. And we could tell a story. And when you're telling that story with me, every time I say something, you continue the story. We're just going to tell a cute little story together. Whenever it's your turn, you say, yes, but, and then you keep going, and then I'll keep going, and I'll say, yes, but. So we'll try that. Today I walked down the street.
Yes, but it was raining.
Yes, but I brought my umbrella.
Yes, but the umbrella had holes in them.
Yes, but my hair was a mess.
Yes, but you also had a raincoat.
Yes, but my raincoat had holes in it as well.
Yes, but were you going somewhere important that it mattered?
Oh, yeah. So we'll just say end scene on that. Let's try this game again, and we're going to flip it in the upside down. And instead of saying yes, but, we're going to say yes, and. So I let you start and I'll continue. So when you say something, I'll continue with yes, and. So you try.
This weekend, I'm going to go to a water park.
Yes, and I have my sunscreen and I'm really excited to go.
Yes, and I'm worried about it being crowded.
Yes, and luckily I made a reservation at the right time where I know it's not going to have too many people.
Yes, and I'm excited to hang out with my friends.
Yes, and the last time we were there, we had the greatest time, so this time's going to be a great time.
Yes, and I got to make sure I'm home at time because if I come late, I don't get enough sleep.
Yes, and I know that by the time I get home, I will be super tired and I'll have a great sleep because I would have had a great time with my friends and in the sun. So, end scene. So what's the difference between yes, but versus yes, and? You just experienced it yourself. What did you think?
But was more of a contradiction. I have to almost like, and and was continuing like a cooperation together moving forward. Yeah.
So 100%, Mark, you totally got it. So there's no accent at all that I chose this. Of all the millions of exercises I could have pulled out like this, there's no accident in this because the first rule of improv is called yes. And that is that you agree with each other. So if I'm saying, here's a frog, you'll say, yes, it's a frog. And then you add some quality to it. And then we're creating. That's how we do it on stage. And I think also in life, everyone has someone in their life who says yes, but. And usually in companies, we're living in yes, but cultures where that there's always the smartest person in the room. We'll call them Norbert. You know who you are, Norbert. Norbert says, Mark, yes, but Mark, I heard your proposal. I heard your pitch. Yes, but that idea is impossible. Or yes, but someone else already did that. So Norbert, if all you did was one thing, was change yes, and you have the ability to actually keep Mark on the same page with you, overcome conflict, keep building, keep co-creating, and come up with a new solution and a new way to solve your problem. So I love this applied improv aspect. And I think, again, like talking about peak performance, yes, and it's such a simple thing. So imagine if you're just going to tweak one little thing in a meeting, and instead of being the smartest person in the room saying, yes, but that doesn't work, McKinsey folks, you know who I'm talking to, right? We love you, and we know that you're all yes, but people. So thank you, McKinsey friends. And to say yes, and you can bridge conflict, you can co-create, you can become more creative, you can actually make people feel like they're part of something like more cohesive and more, yeah, wanting to work together. By doing these types of tools, by doing these types of exercises, I've been able to create new business models in some of the major pharma companies in the world, just by starting with yes, and. Also with my customer service agents in my company, it's always yes and. Extract yes but from your language 100% all the time, and we use yes and. Anyway, I know this isn't an entire podcast about improv. However, I just think it's such a great open source tool that everyone has access to. It's low stakes failure. It is an easy way to shortcut personal rapport between people, even through a screen. I feel you and me getting closer to each other. I feel that. And coming up with new ideas, inventing new business models, products, services, companies. It is just one of those magic formulas that can help you get to peak performance.
Love it. All these things you have done in your life, today you've gotten to a place where you are helping elderly people have the conveniences they need, have the necessities around them, not have to rely on friends or family or just kind people who are just passing by, but have a reliable system through which they can spend the remainder of their years in comfort and be taken care of. What moment in your life first made you feel the call to serve others in this way?
Oh, I love this question. So I would say I'm a strange person that the call to service of how to help people live better lives, be they patients or people who would become patients or people who are navigating their healthcare system, that call to service and that call to purpose was actually very young in my life. And I think it has something to do with, I grew up in healthcare, everyone in the family did something. And even as a child, I was just thinking about this today, Mark, as a child, I was a caregiver from my own grandmother at home every day, giving her insulin injections and transferring her from the chair to the wheelchair and all the things that are associated with caregiving. And I was also, my dad was a dentist, and so I was actually an assistant in his office. So I was actually actively caring for people and helping them alleviate their pain on a personal level. So that call to service came very young. And I felt like, how do I take this as an impact going one-to-one to an impact one-to-many? And I think that's how I found through one of my great professors at Georgetown University, Gloria, thank you so much. I still appreciate you so much. She suggested actually the world of public health would help me with this impact goal and ambition to go from one-to-one to many. And I think, so therefore the call to public health brings us into public health policy and all these things. And my career in pharmaceuticals, in development and access and those kinds of things. So all those experiences together let me sitting there with the call for a public health impact, which could be for something that's coming to us. What's the big burning platform in public health that's coming next? Cardiovascular disease, cardiometabolics, all these type of things. And also aging. So when we look at the population only in the US, or you could look globally, so if you look only in the US, by 2050, we're going to have 83 million people who are above 70. That number globally is 1.3 billion globally that we're going to have above the age of 70, so tripling what we have right now. So I think it's the combination of this burning platform of that which is coming our way in terms of a massive market opportunity, a massive gap in care, a massive need from a compassion perspective, and a call to action for service and a call for action for purpose. That it was just such an obvious thing. My friend, Miriam Perina, came to me and with this idea, and we started collaborating and we became co-founders together to do this, to create this company called Viva Valet, which, as you say, it's this digital platform that brings all of these fragmented services together in one place for olders or their adult children like me to get the core services that they need in order to live at home independently. So you spoke about how can you do this? How can you organize these types of services for older so that they're able to live independently? This is where it's at. There's no one else that's doing this right now.
What is the systemic issue that older adults face that you have seen in your experience that most people never even think about?
Yeah, so I think the systemic issue, there's a couple of them. One of them is, I think everyone listen up, because above the age of 65, you have a 15 to 30% chance of dying from a fall. So if you and me healthy, we're able to, if we fall, we're able to get up. Or if we fall, it's unlikely that I'm going to break my hip, or it's unlikely that you're going to break your femur. As we get older, our bones lose strength and we lose muscle strength. Sarcopenia, we lose muscle, not just muscle strength, but we lose muscle and we lose bone density, and therefore the ability for bones to not break when you fall. So when you get up into these older ages, and you fall, you could, again, this 15 to 30% chance of dying, it could come from the fall. Perhaps you've had a major traumatic moment where you're not going to survive the fall, or you have a surgery and you don't survive the surgery, or you survive the surgery and then you go into recovery long term and you get pneumonia from the recovery. So there's all these kind of really sensitive points where you could potentially be knocked down. And if you survive that fall, which hopefully you do, 50% of people who've survived those falls never regain full functionality. So for me, that's one of the things that I'm super passionate about, is how do we prevent falls in the home, in the community, for people who are aging, because that's the one thing that's going to take away your independence. If you have those major injuries and then you lose mobility, that's a major risk. So that's one area. I'll pause for a second because there's lots of other things we can say about the burning platform of aging.
Yeah. No, keep on, because there's so many misunderstanding that we have about aging. So as you're going through this process, what are you discovering?
Yeah, so many things. If we study the blue zones, so I'm sure I'm going to forget all of the sites of these blue zones in the world, but blue zones are cities, communities all over the world. There's one in Greece, Japan, Loma Linda, in California, Sardinia, for example. They are all over the world, and they're places where you have high concentration of people who reach the age of 100. So there, social scientists, biologists have been studying these communities, trying to understand and biohack what's the secret to aging. And so what they found is there's low-hanging fruit things like, oh yeah, sure, lots of vegetables, alcohol use, but low alcohol use, physical exercise. But the common theme that's really evident in all these communities is continuing to stick with socialization and intergenerational socialization and a sense of purpose, identifying what the sense of purpose is. And I don't mean, I'm going to solve the problems of the world. It could be, I have purpose because I'm caring for this plant. Like, this is my purpose, and I am responsible and accountable for this plant or my grandchild or my pet. So finding ways to connect to that. Because I had this wonderful conversation with the head of the OECD, and he told me, Jennifer, the thing that is the most unhealthy decision you can ever take is to retire, because you lose that sense of kind of status, but really that sense of purpose and the social interactions. So I think we often face this kind of burning platform and crisis of not having purpose, or not, and therefore maybe having loss of social connection and sense of loneliness that is spreading over these populations, which is leading to reduced health state as well. Like, loneliness equates to a reduced health state. When you are looking at this population, I think the other crisis is truly the crisis of confidence. Because if you get to this age of 80, congratulations, you've won the genetic lottery and you've been able to survive where possibly your ancestors weren't able to survive up to that age. And hopefully your health span is also equivalent with your lifespan. And as you have those years accumulating, the world continues to move around you, and I think very much driven by technology. And what I see with my customers is that this shifting world around them means that they're often losing confidence in how they are looking at the world because they're losing touch with technology. So an urgency that I have seen with my customers is, let's maintain, not build, but maintain confidence by getting them up to speed on tech. And that means getting them to be able to navigate their phones very well, for example, getting to them to the point where they're very comfortable with their mobile banking apps, with their online medical records, for example. If they're not able to access the net in those kinds of areas or apps or even AI for that matter, they're going to be left behind in contributing to the economy. So these are major platforms that I would see are burning platforms for caring for olders.
Yeah. Some of the things that you mentioned, the physical caring of things, providing abilities so that they are safe, or even building a community. I have seen other facilities where older people get together playing bingo just so that they don't feel lonely, food supply, food deliveries, and things like that. But what you talked about, one of the things about giving them purpose, I've never really thought about it. So, how are you going about instilling purpose in people who have retired and are not in a place where they can decide not to retire, but need the sense of purpose to live that full life?
Yeah, so great question. So, what is purpose? It's very individual. So, I think number one is in communities and families, it's find out what does that mean for you. So, what is the thing that you wish to do or you get to do? So, up until that age, those beautiful golden years, we're often driven by the have to do's or to do lists or must do lists. Once you get to that age where you've actually left the world of work, you have a different set of lists, which are get to do, want to do, wish to do, hope to do. Some call it the bucket list, right? What am I going to do before I kick the bucket? So what I found in conversation with my customers is to say, what is the most important thing with that limited amount of time that you have? So as you get to those upper ages, I consistently hear the finite resource that we wish that we had more of, that you younger people all have infinite resources of, is time. So with that time, let's make it count. And I think often families will look at older people to say, you've got all the free time you want. And actually, my customers have a plan. They're doing something. They're busy. I'm going to this class, this computer class. I'm going to do my charity work. I'm going to do my volunteering. I'm going to my Pilates class. I'm going to play pickleball. They are busy and they get to do the things that they want to do. So that idea of purpose is very much driven by what's that thing. So I see a lot of people writing books, actually. That's a lot of people, a lot of our customers are writing their own personal memoirs, even if it only means they're going to go to their family. But I see lots of memoirs being written, gorgeous. Even if it's just a verbal memoir as well, it's also just fantastic to see. I think the important thing for a company like us and other companies that might be, or entrepreneurs that are listening and thinking, wow, this is a huge market. There's a huge opportunity here. If I want to build a business to serve this area, what do I do? And again, talk to those customers. What is it that they want to achieve? What does good look like? What are their hopes, their dreams, their fears? That's actually how we started with all of this, is we spent a lot of time in research, having really high quality conversations, doing ethnographic research with our older to understand what is that thing that fills you with purpose and what do you choose to do with your time. And as a result of wanting to double down and spend that limited finite time on your purpose, what are the things that you want to give up doing? And that's very much how the services that we provide to our customers were actually identified, because they were coming from olders themselves. So I think, again, the call to action, since, this is a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trying to develop something, the next big thing, if you're going to do something with olders, please do, first of all. It is a burning platform. We talked about the population numbers that's coming. We don't have enough people in families, in communities, and in the healthcare system to care for them properly. We're just low on numbers. Like what we call dependency ratio by 2030 is 3 people to 1 older, which means 3 people like in a family to 1 older. There's not enough people around to help the olders that need support. So there's so many opportunities to serve them. But my request to you is, the urgency is, if you're going to create a business around solving a service need for olders, please talk with them, please co-develop with them. Don't develop for them and hope they like it, and develop with them, because that's exactly what we did. Even with our tech, we developed the tech with our olders, which is making it unique and special, because if you look at our UI UX, it's very user-friendly, very clean, lower decision points on every page. That's coming directly from co-developing it with olders.
Earlier in the podcast, you talked about the power of yes and. What was the most powerful yes and moment in the creation process of this company?
I think just it was yes, and I will do this with you. When my founder came to me and said, I've got this idea, I'm kicking this around. I really would love to work with you. We were already friends. We had been circling around each other, brainstorming things, ideas, like in the brain trust, as you'd say, post-COVID brain trust. And she said, I have this idea. And that was my big yes and. Yes, I agree. I agree with you. And let's do this and let's keep building it. I think that for me was probably the biggest yes and of my life in the creation of this company. So I think, let me also say that in the world of yes and, we talk about it as like a big crossroads type of moment. That was a huge crossroads moment. And I also want to emphasize that it's often the micro steps, the nano steps on a daily basis that nudge you towards a direction that are almost undetectable, that are little yes ands that nudge you to where you need to be or want to be. I'll introduce another idea to you, Mark, if that's okay. We have this concept called I bring a brick. What that means is when I come to a meeting or when I come to a show and I'm going to perform, for example, or let's say I'm coming to a meeting and you and I are going to have an ideation session about developing a company together. Awesome. First of all, let's do that. Yes, and I don't come to the meeting when you don't come to the meeting with a fully formed cathedral or building or business plan. You come with a brick. I come with a brick. We each have one brick. And maybe Sam and Janice and Bob and David, everyone's building a brick. So I think if we say that as monumental as those yes ands can be actually micro or nano yes ands that are nudging you, you're each bringing a contribution that might even feel indistinguishable or insignificant, but once you've built that wall or that room all together, you realize the contribution of the team. And I think in order to get to build that wall together, you have to yes and each other with each brick that comes. So for each element that comes into a business plan, a product development conversation, a service development conversation, keep yes anding each of those bricks or each of those little micro contributions to acknowledge that you alone or I alone can't do it by ourselves. We are meant as human beings to be thinking and feeling together in order to create. Like horses run together, fish swim together. That's our sense of belonging. We think and we feel together. And by thinking and feeling together, that's the safe space to create together. And that could be creating anything. It could be the art of improv like we're talking about. It could be the art of creating a business from nothing.
Having a co-founder and how that has shaped your life and your company. But co-founders, sometimes it doesn't go well. So for entrepreneurs listening to this, in your experience, what are some telltale signs to go into a relationship like this and have the most success versus maybe avoid this?
So I just had lunch with an entrepreneur, founder, CEO who just exited, had a very successful exit. And we were talking about this co-founder relationship. So you've got me, the pump is primed for this conversation. And we spoke about how a co-founder relationship is like a marriage. And we say, like it or not, your partner, should you decide to get married, that is the most important decision that you're ever going to make in your life. Because that person that you've said yes and to forever, that person is going to determine where the two of you are living, your economy, if you're having children, the future genetic code of your family, the food that you eat, the mood, the weather. Let's say the leader brings the weather, like the weather of and the culture of the family and the mood of the family and the mood of your every single day. And whether you snore or not, getting good sleep or not. I think that's like a marriage, and not all marriages last. And I think it's really a good analogy for a co-founder relationship. And I think very often people get it wrong because you don't think through all the consequences of these things, or that you're probably going to spend more time with your founder, your co-founder, than you do with your actual spouse. Because those are long days, those are early mornings, Those are long business trips. Maybe you're even gone for extended periods of time as you're in a go-to-market period, or you're launching in a new market, for example. So I think it's really important. So acknowledging that this is like a quantum level relationship in your life, as you would choose a spouse, as you would choose a partner that way. I'm really impressed by Antler as an incubator. I've talked with them, and by the time we got involved with them, we were too big and we were too far along in our development process. But I've talked to a lot of their partners in Antler, which is an incubator and early stage investor. And what they like to do is they like to bring together people who maybe have an idea, maybe don't, but they actually are, I think it's an in-residence program that maybe lasts 2 months, maybe it's 3. I might be unspecific about the duration, but they bring people together who are interesting and interested and might be able to work with other folks. And whether they have an idea or not, they go through these kinds of challenges. How do you deal with stress? How do you create psychological safety? What's your preferred way to work? What's your preferred way to engage with your team? What type of culture do you want to set? They work out all those kinds of elements, and then they pair individuals together to become co-founders. And I really like this model because sometimes you may not know all of that about the person, even if they're your friend. And it's almost, you have a marriage counselor if you're going to get married. It's like you need a startup counselor who helps you through that to navigate that relationship of how are we going to come together? How are we going to solve problems? Are we willing to be tolerant of a conflict together? Because you're going to have conflict. Will you be able to fight well with your co-founder? And then also, just like you have a prenup in a marriage, if you do, you need to think about that. What are the consequences if this thing doesn't work out? And I think a lot of people forget that. And I'm often hearing the sad stories of when partnerships don't last, and how do you disentangle from each other? How do you manage that cap table? How are you going to sort that out if you've got a partner who's leaving?
All this work that you're doing, how do you want to be remembered? Not professionally, but personally.
I think I already am remembered for something that I never expected to be, which is when I look at teams that I've built, even in large corporations, I've had people come to me to say, Jen, you were the best boss I've ever had. And then I'm like, thank you. What do you mean? And it's that I built cultures that people wished to be a part of, loved to feel belonging in, and they felt like they were given the freedoms to be who they are and bring their whole selves to the table. And their contributions were applauded, were celebrated, and I gave them space and trust to be at their peak performance. Mark, I'm bringing it back to your central theme. I gave them the space and the resources so they could be at their peak performance. And I've had so many of these people come to me recently. I don't know why, but I've seen several of former employees from across different organizations. And they've said, you gave me psychological safety, you believed in me, you gave me the tools, you blocked the things that needed blocking so that I could focus and do my best work, and you celebrated me along the way, and you never gave up on me. I think some of these tools and some of these qualities of leadership and culture building are sometimes lost in this world that is now a ChatGPT driven world, where we ask ChatGPT to be our therapist and to be our conflict negotiator and to be our negotiator for anything, and to be someone who could navigate a conflict, maybe even in work. I think we're losing the skill of being human for each other, to being empathetic, because leadership requires empathy to understand where your people are that you're leading and the team that you're creating, and how to create cohesion, how to create peak performance. So again, and then not to beat a dead horse, but truly a space in this world where we can preserve our humanness and practice our humanness is by using these improv tools, because it brings us back into, wow, I'm going to create something with someone else from nothing. No chat GPT is allowed in those practice rooms. I'm going to fall on my face, and it's going to suck sometimes. And I'm going to figure out, how am I going to get myself out of this? Or how am I going to recover from the micro shame of it not working out? I'm going to continue to be human and work on my human skills. In this age of AI, finding ways to continue to practice being human and empathy, emotion, co-creation, it's an improv is a skill for you.
You literally stole the words out of my mind because that was the next question I was going to ask. All these things you're talking about, building a team, making everybody feel included, giving them space, you can chat GPT that. Chat GPT is going to say, if you ask ChatGPT, how do you build a good team? That's what it's going to say. But it's so much harder to do in person as opposed to understanding what needs to be done. So for leaders who are listening to this and struggling with this, can you give one or two specific examples of things you've done in the past to create this type of a community?
To create this type of community.
Yeah.
So
At
I
work.
think that, yeah, so happy to share all of that. And again, I think to loop back on this ChatGPT thing, ChatGPT can do all the thinking for you. I think as a leader, it's okay to rely on ChatGPT to help you with some analysis, help you with ideation, help you with thinking. But ChatGPT it might tell you how to feel, but it's not going to feel it for you. And as a human, you have to feel that experience. And so I think one of the things as leaders and those who follow leaders in these big communities that we call work, we're looking for belonging. We're really looking for, am I going to join this team? Am I going to fit in? Does my voice matter? Does my contribution matter? Is it honored? Is it valued? And I think that the rituals of arriving and departing from an organization are really important to build a culture of belonging so that you emotionally feel like you belong there and there's a place for you and there's a place to value your contribution. What I mean by that, the ritual of arrival. So the ritual of having new staff come in, making sure that you have a way to formally introduce them, formally welcome them. Is it a team meeting? Is it a stand-up? Is it a town hall? It depends on the size of your organization. Is it a coffee? Is it a dinner? Finding whatever ritual works for you. Have a way to have every person arrive in a similar way where you honor them and say, wow, welcome, high five, thank you for joining. And it's important for that person who's joined, and it's important for all the people that have already been there to witness the art of the arrival, because it continues to remind them of the culture that they've joined. It's a cultural exercise, truly. It's a corporate cultural exercise. The art of leaving, the art of departure, I find is equally as important because it's a good send-off. You always want a good leaver. You want to have a good departure for each person who leaves their organization. First of all, they're tied to the brand of your organization. You want them to be successful as they launch. Imagine if someone who had been in your company started the next unicorn company. You want them to speak really highly of the company that you've just left. So let them leave with their head high and celebrate their departure. Also, for the people that are still there, they need to see that they are going to still be honored as they depart. It's just as important for the person who leaves as the person who stays. And again, what I really like in that ritual of departure, you don't have to do this, but the thing that I've really enjoyed doing, it's almost, one of my coaches once said, think of it as almost like giving a funeral for their experience in your company. In order to start something new, you have to say goodbye to something else. So that art of leaving, I've had often in this room with my companies, people arrive for a dinner to say goodbye, and you have 3 bowls that you leave out and scraps of paper. And they read it, and one bowl is labeled, what is your favorite memory of this person and this team? Bowl number 1. Bowl number 2, what's the funniest thing that this person did while they were in this team? Bowl number 3, what's the thing that they taught me that I'm going to keep having in my team? So I like, you get, let's say 20, 30 people around, they're putting these comments in, and then you pass the bowl around the table and people take turns reading each of them. So you don't know who said it. And then it becomes a joke of who said this? But it's the art of you're leaving really well and you're cementing that you are part of something that we will remember, and we honor you and we celebrate you and we wish you well. And then everyone else feels like they're still part of that cultural history that they're driving in the company. I know it's a lot of words, Mark, but I hope it makes sense.
No, I love it. I love it. You know, what I'm thinking during this whole time is, and I'm sure my audience is too, female entrepreneurs. I hate to say it this way. Sometimes they have it harder than male entrepreneurs just because of the gender roles that we have in the society. And a lot of female entrepreneurs, not only they're working their company, they're also raising their children, and then they're also taking care of the home. outside of improv, outside of all these
And they're
things,
olders.
and they're
That's
elders,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right before the podcast, you shared that you have a trip coming up where you have to go and take care of somebody, dear to you. Outside of improv, outside of all these other things, how do you as a person juggle all these things and be excellent at it? You're a dog mom, you're a child mom, you're taking care of elders, you're running a company. How do you do that?
So for me, it starts with hydration. So I'm just gonna cover up the label on this. Hydration. And this is actually electrolyte, so I didn't drink it because I didn't drink it while we're on because I want to not look like a weirdo. But I drink electrolytes every single morning. And that's not just, sure, for our skin health and for our health, yes. All the things that you described are potentially cortisol inducing. Cortisol is a neurotransmitter of stress. A lot of those things, especially all together, can lead to a stress response, which is a cortisol release. Now, cortisol, that little bleepity bleep effer, it's emitted from your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands sit right above your kidneys on your back. And so it's like the great thief of hydration. So if you are going through a stressful period or you're juggling a lot, like all the things you described that I'm juggling in my life, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are juggling the same kinds of things, hydrate always. And if you can use electrolytes, even better, because it'll help you with your magnesium and it'll help you with restoring any of your essential electrolytes that you might be losing through sweat and excess hydration. Number one, that. Number two, movement. So make movement a priority. So for me, that's obviously walking the dogs, but it's also daily exercise, a daily commitment to exercise. I'm training for a triathlon, all those kinds of things. The other is, so that there's the physical thing, do you keep friends around you that can be your 3 a.m. friends who you can call at 3 a.m., who you know that no questions asked, you call at 3 a.m., they call at 3 a.m., you're answering that. Super important. So that's also the emotional need. From a spiritual perspective, I am a consistent meditator. So I am a daily meditator, and it could be as little as 10 minutes and as long as an hour and 10 minutes. It just depends on how busy I am. And my own teacher in meditation often says, meditate for 10, 15 minutes a day, but if you're really busy, you should be meditating for an hour. So that's about me getting in my headspace and making sure that I'm visualizing the day. Like, I am a creator of my life. I'm bringing the weather. I'm bringing the mood. I am not just bringing the mood into the room, but I'm bringing the mood into myself. So if I can control that for myself, and if thinking negative thoughts can make you sick, which we know, if you're thinking badly, there's so many linkages between depression and negative thoughts and other disease processes that are actually coming to us as a result of just feeling badly, thinking badly about ourselves. So if that's true, which we acknowledge it is, and science acknowledges that, we can also say if you think differently, if you have a positive outlook, if you try to find a way to have a practice of gratitude or a practice of acknowledging people, things in your world, then actually you're going to have a different outlook and you're creating a different environment for your physical body to be living in. So you're pumping out more of the good hormones, the good stuff, like the good neurotransmitters, like the oxytocins that make you feel better, the serotonin that makes you feel more like you have that high status, the leadership hormone. So those are things that are really vital, indispensable practices for me. Oh, one other thing, which I don't know if I've ever talked about on podcasts, is I'm a fan of a naturopathic doctor in New Jersey named Dr. Perry Nicholson, who has a 2-minute lymphatic massage practice, which is about cleaning out the junk in our bodies. I do that daily. I do it every morning as well. So it's going through the major pressure points. So if you look up Dr. Perry Nicholson, and it's called the Big Six lymphatic massage, I highly recommend that. You'll do that and you'll feel like your brain is actually clearing really quickly as well.
Wow. Coming back to your mission, coming back to your current endeavor that you are on to be able to help elders around the world, what is one small thing and let's just can do right now to be part of the solution?
One thing is have a conversation with your older today to say, how would you like me to support you? And I say that in a very dramatic way, because very often we rush in with solutions and we want to do this and that, and we have a checklist and we want to intervene and we want to buy them the iPad or the new phone or the chair or whatever. If we don't have permission to do anything, it's not going to go well. And any of the new cool tech things, like I've seen Oura rings and Apple watches in their boxes that never come out. I've seen amulets that are meant to be fall detection devices that never come out of their packaging. So I think it's like to say, mom, dad, or whomever you're caring for who's older, I love you and I want to have time with you. I want to have time when you're healthy and well to keep having this relationship with you. What can I do to help you? How would you like me to support you? And if you get the permission, you get their guidance, it's gonna work for you instead of jumping on top of them and taking away their choice, their independence, and their agency. So there you go, Mark. I hope that helps.
Love it. Jennifer, it's been so good to have you on the show. Tell our audience a little bit more about Viva Valet, what they can do to join this movement. What are you up to?
I love it. Thank you so much. So Viva Valet is the company we've been talking about a little bit here and there, which we created. It is currently, as of we're recording this right now, at the end of May 2025. We are currently in Illinois and we're expanding to other locations across the US. So maybe by the time you get this, we're already in some new locations, which we are, fingers crossed, going to very soon. We are a digital platform that enables olders to find trusted services that they can utilize to live at home independently. Those services are rides, which could also be assisted rides if they need extra help around wheelchair movement, etc. Food delivery, which is like a week's worth of food delivery, which is customized to their food and nutrition needs, that which we deliver, and then we take away all the excess packaging so they don't have to have the hassle of all this excess refuse removal. We do cleaning, deep cleaning, light cleaning, all the cleaning that you need inside the house. We do home safety assessments, which will lead to home modifications. Again, Mark, what we were talking about around fall prevention, finding ways to prevent spotting risks around falls in the home and then finding ways to correct that. And then ongoing handyman type of services, that is things that are ongoing that often olders need help with, plumbing, electrical, etc. And then lastly, we do tech training. So that could be in the home or also in the community. So what we're going to be up to is that we'll be launching later this year a telephone-in service where if you or me, like we're adult children caring for older folks that might need some support, if you have an emergency or if they just need a bundle of services to be provided, you can call us and we can actually create that bundle for you within a couple of days to say, for example, grandma fell or auntie fell, and she's going to be in the hospital for a week and she's coming home and she needs support. So we could get together that bundle of services that she'll need around her occupational therapy, around her food delivery and cleaning, and the services to support her so that she's going to be safe when she gets home. So that's something that we can do. And obviously, if once Auntie gets back to the pickleball courts and she wants support, we can book her tea times and we can book her appointments and help with the dog walking and those kinds of things as well. Also, if you want to find us, again, our website is www.vivavalet.com. You find us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, and also very much on LinkedIn. We have some weekly series that if you're curious about how to get involved with the journey of aging and supporting the journey of aging for your elders, we have a couple series called Take Action Tuesday and also Debunking the Myths of Aging. So we just check us out. It's like a little 1-minute TED Talk, which often is quite entertaining because I put on my wigs and I put on different characters and things. But we'll teach things like how to train an older to spot phishing emails, for example. So how to guide something I've used for my own dad, and he's an expert, like at the Apple store, he's showing off to everyone how he's teaching them how to avoid phishing emails. I love it. So things like that, or medication check-ins, or how to live a better life and ways to support your older in a way that's with dignity and support and confidence.
Jennifer, I can tell you, you're definitely leaving me and the audience inspired, and you're leaving us changed. So thank you so much for joining this podcast, and I hope to talk to you soon again.
Thanks, Mark. I really love being on your show. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.